Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and AP English and the series of comments on Homer's Iliad. We turn now to Book 20. We're of course now into the very end of the Iliad, our last 4 books. Here, this one, the Olympian gods in arms, is the way Fagles will provide us with the title. We should probably, just for a moment in your notes though, say this to remind. I know we've said this before. The Iliad is a story that was originally, we think, told as one long tale that probably took maybe 24 hours or more to tell as a bard was reciting it. And there weren't, as we understand it, there weren't any really books or chapters or anything like that. Probably about 300 years before Christ in Alexandria, we began to have notions of this idea that the text was being divided up and that kind of thing. And so here we've got a Book 20 story, but really the story we want to understand, even in our study of it, books 19, 20, 21, all leading to Book 22 and the famous fight between Achilles and Hector. Okay. Now, where have we been? Let's just summarize quickly as we have done in all of our earlier lectures. In Book 1, of course, the invocation of the Muse, and Agamemnon and Achilles fall out, and that's of course going to be the beginning of all the action of the few days of the Iliad. In Book 2 we have Agamemnon's bad dream sent by Zeus that in fact the Greeks will ascend. Yes, everything's going to be great, the catalog of the ships and the chariots. In Book 3 we have Paris going against Menelaus, and we think maybe now the war is over because Menelaus has defeated Paris. But in Book 4 we will have Zeus talking with Hera, and Hera saying, no, Troy must fall. That will be significant for this book, by the way, in terms of the conversation between gods, all right? And Pandarus then will be told, why don't you try and shoot your little brand new bow and arrow set, and, wounds Menelaus, and now the war's back on. In Book 5, we have Diomedes' Aristeia, that word Aristeia meaning a typeset for a battle, a whole battle sequence of fighting prowess to show how amazing you are. Obviously we're into Achilles' for sure by Book 20. We'll see the same. In Book 5 it's Diomedes' turn, and we have Aphrodite and Ares both being wounded by Diomedes in Book 5. In Book 6, pivotal book for us. Hector back in the walls of Troy with his wife Andromache and his son Astyanax. He won't see them again for the rest of the Iliad. Book 7, the great Greek warrior Ajax fighting against Hector. They come to some sense of standoff and stand down in terms of truce. Book 8, now we have the famous scales of Zeus weighing to decide who jacks who, and the decision is made that the Trojans along with Hector will find the ascension, at least for a while. In Book 9, the Greeks are getting beaten, and so Agamemnon listens to Nestor, sends the embassy to Achilles. We're told he's sitting outside of his tent strumming a lyre that he won in a sacking of a city, singing about stories of old heroes with Patroclus, his pal, sitting over there nearby in silence. Odysseus, Phinox, and Ajax all try to convince Achilles, please just come back and let's end this thing. He says no. I paused at the end of Book 9's lecture, and I gave a review of Books 1 through 9. I call this lecture Achilles' Crisis of Faith. I think that it's such an important element, as do many scholars of the Iliad, that when Achilles says no to amazing offer, it's basically the world, all of the time or honor imaginable, the Scooby snacks of the world all rolled into one are offered to Achilles, as well as kleos or glory, the warrior code as we call it. And Achilles turns down all of it to say, I've got no interest in it anymore. He says it, I just don't think I believe in any of it anymore. Which leads, of course, to a very pivotal moment for Achilles. What do you do when all the stuff you believed in once in your life, that basically was the whole reason you did anything in your life, all of a sudden you decide, none of it matters to me anymore. I don't believe in any of it anymore. In Book 10, Diomedes and Odysseus do their little night raid where they will go into a Trojan, into the Trojan area. They will jack Dolan and they'll steal some ponies. Book 11, Agamemnon's Aristeia. And this will lead ultimately to Achilles watching sending Patroclus to go and visit with Nestor about all the wounded. And that will be the moment that begins it all for the tragedy, as we've said. Book 12, the Trojans are there. They're at the ramparts, they're at the trench, they're at the wall. We have Hector's famous boulder to jack a hole in the wall. In book 13, we have Poseidon, who is obviously very concerned for the Greeks. And as Calchas, he is encouraging. Then we have Hector finding Paris. It'll be one of the last moments we see Paris. And at the very end of book 13, we have the scream of Hector. It's going to be a lot of screaming in the Iliad, sometimes screaming for war, sometimes screaming in grief. Well, certainly have already seen that. Book 14, this is where sex meets violence, as we said. This is Hera's seduction scene of Zeus. She has her own Aristeia. She gets ready to do battle, of course, with the makeup and the whole deal. And it works, and she seduces Zeus, and then afterwards puts him to sleep. And during that time, Hector almost dies. Ajax hits Hector with a boulder in his chest and about kills him off. In book 15, when Zeus comes around and wakes up, he is really upset. Hera said it had nothing to do with me. It was Poseidon. And Poseidon is told he has to stop. Apollo is sent to heal Hector. And now the Trojans really are on ascension. In book 16, pivotal book for us, we have the death of Sarpedon to begin with, the son of Zeus. Zeus wants to keep it from happening. Hera says, you can't do that. You cannot save this person. He must die. Because if you change that fate, all of the gods are going to be really upset at you because they also have children who are around here. Remember that, because here in book 20, we're going to have a very similar situation with Aeneas, who is, of course, the son of Aphrodite. And Aeneas is going to get saved. Just lay that in the back of your mind. We then will have Patroclus and his Aristeia, and of course, fighting in Achilles' armor. Hector will, in fact, kill Patroclus. In book 17, we have this major battle over the body of Patroclus. Hector finally getting Achilles' armor and putting it on, and Zeus shaking his head like, dude, that's a bad idea all the way around. The last guy that wore that armor was jacked, and the guy whose armor it is will soon be jacked. This is a bad idea for you to do this. Antilochus is sent, son of Nestor, to tell Achilles, we got bad news. And in book 18, it happens. Achilles is told two things important. One, your pal, Patroclus, is dead. Two, the armor that you have fought in for all these years is gone. Achilles will mourn Patroclus. Thetis is worried that her son will in fact end his own life. He needs armor to be able to fight. She goes to Hephaestus in book 18 and she gets those famous set of arms with especially that shield which represents the whole world on it. Finally, in book 19, we have Agamemnon and Achilles resolving their issues. They kiss and make up. They blame, of course, all the gods imaginable, and they blame women on top of it as well. Briseis, or maybe Helen, or Hera, all the women get blamed, right? And in the end, Achilles will dress for battle in his Aristeia, which is about to begin. He talks to his ponies, and he will say to his ponies, you know, do a better job. And of course, Roan, his one pony, will say, first of all, Patroclus dying was not our fault, and second of all, you're about to die yourself. And of course, Achilles will say, you don't have to tell me that, I already know that. And now we're ready to begin book 20. Just to remind, the hope here, of course, is that you are reading on your own this text, and then you're using me to annotate. As we move now into the final books of the Iliad, first of all, congratulations if you've been reading with me the whole time and following. You have accomplished something quite remarkable to get to book 20. And secondly, you should by this point be comfortable and confident in your reading of the Iliad well enough to be able to pick up a chapter like this, a book like this, and to read it and be able to understand it on your own and then have me to help you. Of course, our learning theory, I want to again emphasize that ability to connect new information to old information in meaningful ways. And we do that in our reading, our annotative process, by asking three guiding questions. At level 1, what does the text say? At level 2, what does the text mean? Here, of course, at 2A, messages, themes. And at 2B, we are focusing in the rhetorical side on symbolism and irony. We could obviously be looking at a whole lot of other things as well. We will, by the way, look again at the epic simile. We've been making comments about that as we have gone. Finally, at level 3, we ask, how can I relate to this information? Own the text, as we say it. At 3a, relate to other texts, beginning, of course, with the preceding books of the Iliad, and then any other texts that come to mind as well. And finally, at 3b, how can I relate this information to myself personally? It's always an important part of what we're trying to do, reminding you. To begin with now, and you want this in your notes because this will inform so much of our study of Book 20, because Book 20 will be Zeus unleashing the gods. Up to this point, the gods have been told to stay out of it, although, of course, at moments they have broken that rule. But in Book 20, it's going to be a pivotal moment for us, and so we want to write this down. The gods who are going to be pro-Greek, we will write them down as Hera, Athena, Poseidon, Hermes, and Hephaestus, right? The pro-Trojan gods will be Ares, Apollo, Artemis, and of course Aphrodite, who got the golden apple awarded to her from Paris in the first place. And then Zeus will be kind of in the middle as the fulcrum. Sometimes he will lean more Greek, sometimes he will lean more Trojans, just depending. Again, as we've said, Book 20 through 22 really should be read as one long narrative of Achilles' slaughter, and the all of the roads that take us ultimately moving towards that final battle with Hector. Okay, let's do a quick review. First, Zeus calls together to muster, very similar to Achilles in the last book calling muster. Poseidon will ask him, his brother, what's going on, and Zeus is going to say, I'm concerned about these mortals. Achilles is enraged, and I'm really concerned he's going to take Troy down before it's time for Troy to fall. He says it, down you go to the gods and goddesses, and off they go. We're going to get some bizarre lines. The blissful gods, right, rousing both armies. It's almost as if this is a game for them of a kind. Zeus sends an unbelievable crack of thunder, Poseidon with the earthquake, frightening even Hades, and it's almost like game on, if you will. All right. Gods fighting gods. In fact, at line 80, the word look is given as if the poet is describing this, and he wants those listening to imagine in their mind's eye that the gods are actually fighting against each other. We then have Apollo as Lacon, Priam's son, who will come to the great warrior Aeneas and say, it's time to fight Achilles. Aeneas will initially say, that's a very bad idea because I could get dead quickly. And Apollo says, whoa, whoa, whoa. First off, both of you have a goddess for a mother. His mother is a sea goddess, Thetis. Your mother is Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. Surely, of course, you have the ability to win in battle. And, Aeneas bites on this idea. It's actually Apollo who is tempting him to do so, right? And sure enough, you've got Aeneas coming at Achilles, and Hera sees all of this. And she says to Poseidon and to Athena, we got to make sure that Aeneas doesn't win, right? We got to protect Achilles. And it will be Poseidon who has this interesting idea. Why don't we just sit here and watch for a little bit? And we're told at line 181 that the gods are kind of reluctant, if you will, to intervene. We'll have Achilles versus Aeneas, or you have this epic simile that goes on for line 194 to 204, fully 10 lines long, which describes Achilles as a lion, an amazing simile. We'll get to it. And then we'll have Achilles taunting. He's like, you do realize if you kill me, they still aren't going to make you king of Troy, right? Priam's got sons already, obviously, in the back of Achilles' mind. In the front of Achilles' mind is Hector, right? You almost get this sense that Achilles is pretty sure that he's going to kill Aeneas, but at the same time, Aeneas is not number one on his kill list, obviously, it's Hector, right? Aeneas will reply, he'll say, my birth is better than yours, echoing, obviously, what Apollo has already, whispered in his ear, as is transformed as his brother. And then we get this long story of Aeneas' lineage and family and his birth story, which will almost remind us of the genealogies that we read in other texts. The Bible comes to mind as a genealogy that's, kind of says, this is where I came from. Aeneas will finish his story, and then he will throw his spear and miss. Achilles will throw his spear. By the way, the shield of Achilles does save. I say miss, he hits the shield. Achilles throws and nearly kills Aeneas. And it's at this moment that Aeneas, we're told, kind of realizes he's kind of freaked out and frightened. Achilles will charge. Aeneas will pick up a boulder, and we're ready for the major contest. When then Poseidon steps in, he says, we have to save Aeneas, right? Because he's destined to survive. And then you get these really important line at line 350 that basically suggests that Aeneas is going to continue Troy, continue the tradition and the heroism of Troy. And of course, this will be where Virgil will invent, in many ways, those famous sets of lines that we know of as the Aeneid, a set of lines and a poem that we'll be studying later. Hera will say, fine, we can save Aeneas, but Troy is still going to fall. And Poseidon says, fine. He sends his mess, fog. He rescues Aeneas, right? And he says to Aeneas, look, don't listen to Apollo. Don't fight in the front lines until Achilles is dead. Again, standing behind the entire Iliad is this recognition that Achilles will soon die. Certainly Achilles is going to die if after the death of Patroclus he comes into the war to fight, even though ultimately he'll be successful against Hector. And Achilles, when the mist kind of changes or whatever, Achilles is obviously upset in the same way that Menelaus was upset when Paris was taken over by Aphrodite, he was taken over the walls of Troy. Menelaus was obviously upset as well. Dude, I won. I should get my Scooby Snacks here, my teammate. But Achilles recognizes, sums up, the gods are helping Aeneas, and that's okay, there's plenty more to kill. And you almost get the sense that he's a little relieved because now he can focus all of his energies on Hector. And if you were sitting listening to the story, you would assume at this point that this is going to be the fight scene that we've been waiting for since Hector killed Patroclus. But no, Apollo's going to say to Hector, stay out of this. Stand at the back and watch. Don't get involved. And Hector will listen to Apollo. And then we begin the kills of Achilles. Now, I'm going to help you here. We will count 13 confirmed kills in Book 20, okay, of Achilles. He will, first of all, I'm just going to name here. He will kill Phaethon, then he will kill Demoleon, then he will kill Hypatius, and then after that, those three kills, he will kill Polydorus. Polydorus is the youngest son of Priam and is Hector's brother, and Hector cannot stomach this. So he will charge Achilles. Achilles says, let's go. Hector says, interesting lines. He says, you are stronger than me, but I might win, right? Hector will throw his spear. Athena will blow the spear away. 4 times Achilles tries to kill Hector, and each time Apollo saves Hector. And Achilles recognizes that Hector is still being defended by the gods. He says, we will fight later. Kind of like in movies that you're familiar with, when the two that are going to fight in the final scene come together, but you still got 40 minutes of movie left, and this will set you up for the final fight scene. Achilles, continuing his kills, then kills Dryops, that's number 5, Dumas, which is number 6. He kills 2 brothers in Leogius and Dardanus, and it's at this point that he meets Tros. And Tros is going to supplicate on his knees and beg Achilles for his life. We're going to see this one more time here in a little bit in the next book of the Iliad. And we're told at line 528 about Achilles, quote, here was a man not sweet at heart, not kind. No, he was raging, wild. I think I've already said to you that in these last books of the Iliad, Achilles is either represented as godlike, just like on fire, head on fire, whatever, or he's a beast, like a lion, for example. We then will finish at his 10th kill is Mulius, his 11th kill is Achilles, his 12th kill is Diocletian, And then finally, Diocletian's driver for kill 13, Rigmas. So this is how the book will end then, with 3 similes describing Achilles as inhuman. And then obviously we're going to move on to book 21, where we're told after killing a lot of more guys, Achilles actually will fight a river. So it's like just intense, intense rage. For those of you who are Monty Python fans, by the way, Search for the Holy Grail, when Lancelot goes nuts, for example, in that castle, he just starts killing everybody. Achilles is who is being mocked in that mock epic story. All right, so there's your brief summary. Let's go now to the lines that open this. And we'll start with Zeus in book 20. And at line 15 or so, and we're told, and so the powers assembled deep in Zeus's halls, and nor did the god of earthquakes, Poseidon, fail to hear the goddess. Surging up from the sea, he came to join their ranks, took a seat in the midst, and probed Zeus's plans. Why now, great king of the lightning? Why summon the gods to council once again? We get the sense that they have to come to these meetings every once in a while. Still, some concern for Troy's and Achaea's armies, now that battle is set to burst in flames between them. Again, put it in your notes. Fire. Every time you see fire, you're going to see it a lot. It is a motif, no question. Achilles equals fire. And in the end, by the next book, the only thing that can slow him down is water. That is to say, Xanthus, a river, right? But, we're told, Zeus, who marshals the thunderheads, replied, God of the earthquake, well, you know my plans, the strategy in my mind, why I call you here. These mortals do concern me, dying as they are. It's an ironic line. If Zeus was really that concerned, obviously, about the death of all these humans, well, he would have done something long ago to have stopped the carnage outside the walls of Troy, right? He says, still, here I stay on Olympus, throned aloft, here in my steep mountain cleft, to feast my eyes and delight my heart. It makes no sense, right?